Good morning and welcome to How to Optimize Your WordPress Website for On-Page SEO, presented by Marco Sarussi from Green Gecko Digital. Good morning, Marco. How are you this morning? Are you here?
Morning, Rory. I'm pretty well, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, brilliant. Really well. Looking forward to the bank holiday weekend. Have you got any plans yourself?
Well, that's a good question. I was going to be flying on Saturday, but the weather's not looking too great, so I don't think I'll be flying then.
Oh, right, fair play. Oh, you fly planes?
Yeah, I've got a private pilot's license, so I've got my own aircraft in Sherburn, but the weather's looking pretty poor, so we'll see how we get on.
Oh, right. Well, we'll have to talk more about that another time. But yeah, brilliant. Well, I'll leave you to it and enjoy the webinar, everyone. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Rory. Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for making it to today's session. I can see some familiar names in the audience list, which is great. So I'm going to share my screen with you all. So one moment. Okay, hopefully you'll be able to see my screen now. So obviously today's webinar is on how to optimize your WordPress website for on-page SEO. So I'm making the following assumption that obviously you have a WordPress website and you're looking to improve your SEO in some way or form. So a couple of things before I actually get into the heart of the topic, and we'll go through a lot of things. I'm just going to tell you a bit about us and maybe why we're suited to talk to you on the subject. So we're a company in Leeds. We focus on two main areas, that's SEO and web design. Started in 2016, though I've been doing this since I was 14. So I've seen how practices change from 2000 all the way to 2020. We're number one on Google for lots of keywords, mainly leads, so SEO company leads, SEO services leads, SEO agency leads, and a lot of the web and web design keywords we're also number one for as well. So we practice what we preach, which is really important. If you do approach an SEO company, make sure they've got very good rankings themselves. We've got now, I think, 37 or 38 5-star reviews on Google. We've had nothing less than a 5-star review too. And I think on Facebook, we've got 17 or 18. We rank for over 410 keywords, and the organic, the value that brings is roughly around £6,000 per month, and that fluctuates depending on where we are position-wise and how search volume varies. Obviously, as a result of COVID, search volume has been a bit all over the place recently, which has been interesting. To give you a couple of examples, obviously, if you're a PPE supplier, you provide protective equipment, then obviously your search volume in the past 6 months has skyrocketed. Whereas if you're an events company, physical events, then obviously the demand for that has decreased. And we'll come on to a bit about search volume and how it plays in with our SEO later on in today's session. And lastly, we're a digital enterprise approved supplier and mentor. The mentoring day was a couple of days ago, which was really good. So I hope most of you were on that and got some good value from it. So the structure of today's presentation, first of all, we'll be talking about what is SEO. Again, I'm going to assume that most of you know what SEO is, but I'm only going to take 2 minutes here and describe the very basics and what we're trying to achieve. So I won't spend too long in that area. Then we'll actually talk about what is on-page SEO. And again, we won't spend too long in this area because most of today's presentation will actually be in all the variables, all the on-page variables, which may sound really technical and may sound very confusing, but in fact, they're very, very simple. And once you understand them, it'll have a massive impact on your SEO. Point number 4, Yoast SEO. That's a plugin that I'm going to show you how to essentially configure and set up for your website, and it's a really, really good plugin. Even the free version is enough for smaller websites. And a lot of today's sessions, I'll be sharing my screen and I'll be talking you through all the variables within the plugin and how you can get the most out of it. And then lastly, we'll touch on best practice. And what I mean by best practice, we're kind of talking about web design, and we're also talking about on-page SEO. Some elements come hand in hand. So for example, we'll be talking about loading speed, we'll be talking about mobile friendliness and is your website responsive, and call to actions and things like that, which overlap into web design, but of course are really important for your on-page SEO too. So let's kick off with number one, what is SEO? Apologies if you know what it is, I'm just going to recap it, and we'll only spend 2 minutes here. Now, the easiest way to describe what SEO is by describing what it's not. For example, take this screenshot you can see here on my slide. We've typed in the keyword SEO company leads. Now you see straight away that there'll be 3 or 4 ads at the top. And we know they're an ad because I've circled in green. You'll be able to see in small writing, there's a green rectangle with the word added. So this is what's called pay-per-click. And again, I'm sorry if you already know this. This is where companies pay per click to be at the top of Google. Obviously, you'll pay a set or a defined variable fee that could range from 20 pence all the way to £20. SEO is quite an expensive industry to be in, so they'll probably be paying around £10 a click for something like that, maybe a bit less. So obviously you can see that will rack up very quickly, depending on your budget, of course. So that's pay-per-click, that's not SEO. What we'll come on to now is SEO. So if you scroll down a tiny bit, you'll come to the organic results. Now, this is what we call SEO, search engine optimization, where you're optimizing your website for organic, natural traffic. Of course, you may have to pay to get here in terms of either money or time, but once you're here, you do not pay per click. So every time someone clicks on your website, it doesn't cost you anything, which is obviously a more sustainable business model. Again, what you sometimes have, depending on what you're actually searching for, is you'll have local SEO, so the map will pop up. And this takes into account a Google My Business listing. It's really only relevant if you have a physical premises or you have a local presence. And it can really help people, it can really help drive footfall into your shop, whether it be a restaurant, a retail unit, etc. Obviously, our office is just on Burley Road. We're a mile west of Leeds city centre, so it's an ideal location for anyone looking for SEO services in Leeds. We appear on the map. And there's a few more things, obviously, you can do here to further increase your chance and likelihood of being promoted in the top 3 map results. And that's essentially local SEO. So not relevant to all businesses, but obviously very, very key to those that want to drive footfall into their premises and have a local offering. So I hope that makes a bit of sense about what SEO is. I apologise for those that already know what it is, but it's really important that we've got a good understanding and we know what it is, so we can talk about on-page SEO. So on-page SEO, what actually is it? Well, there's lots of different things I want to talk about here before we actually get into the nitty-gritty. Essentially, it's everything you do on page to optimize your content on your website. And the reason why I like on-page SEO is because you're in absolutely full control. It's your website, you're full control over it. You can optimize your website to the nth degree and to make sure everything is a tick in the box. Which will give you the best possible chance of ranking for your designated and agreed upon keywords. So that's one thing what I like about SEO. I mean, on-page SEO, just to give you maybe an example, an opposite example, take building backlinks, for example, which is the next step of the SEO process. A backlink is a link from another website to your website. Now, you're not really in control there because you're banking and relying on that other website linking to your website. And unless you control that website, then you can't really guarantee that link. So that's why it's really, really important to make the most of on-page SEO, because everything is within your control. And if you make sure everything is in the green and everything's a tick in the box, then it will stand you in the best possible chance of ranking for your keyword. Another thing to think about in terms of on-page SEO is indexing. That's essentially when Google crawls your website and tries to understand what your website is actually about. And in the process of doing that, it'll pick up on what your website's about, it'll pick up on your keywords and hopefully rank you for your keywords. Now, I want you to think of this in a particular way. How we as humans, we look at websites, we're very visual. So we'll click onto a website, we'll scroll down, we'll read a bit of content. maybe we'll watch a video or look at some imagery, whatever. We're very visual. Well, Google's not like that in the slightest. Google just looks at the code. Google really couldn't care what it looks like. They're just looking at that source code. And again, if you're doing everything from an on-page SEO perspective, that everything's a tick in the box, then that source code will look very, very nice. And it will very clearly tell Google what you're talking about and what keywords you're trying to optimize your website for. So this on-page part of the SEO process is quite technical, but it's definitely not rocket science. It's quite simple once you understand it. And I'll be able to give you the tools and techniques in order to break it down, and we can address each variable one by one. And then once we've ticked off everything, then we'll be able to proceed to the next step, and we can publish that page or optimize that page. That brings us on to Yoast SEO. So later in the webinar, I'll be sharing my screen with you, and we'll be going through Yoast SEO. Yoast is a WordPress plugin. It's a really good SEO plugin. There are lots of other SEO plugins you can use, but Yoast is really what I recommend. And for most small businesses, the free version is more than enough. You don't need to upgrade to the premium one. So we'll spend the majority of today's webinar in Yoast SEO, going through all the different variables and making sure we fully understand it. I suppose before I move on into the detail of today's presentation, one last point to make on page SEO. I just want to define the SEO process, just so you understand where on-page SEO actually fits in the overall SEO process of your website. So first of all, you have keyword research. And again, there was a webinar last week on keyword research. So if you've missed that, I'm sure Rory will be able to send you the link to that webinar, and you'll be able to find out a bit more about keyword research and how we actually conduct keyword research. But put it simply, keyword research is essentially researching the keywords that you want to rank your website for. And for example, we look at the search volume of those keywords, so how many people every month in the UK are typing in that keyword. We'll look at the difficulty of that keyword. So, is it a very difficult keyword to rank for, or is it a very easy keyword to rank for? And then we'll be honest and we'll reassess our website. Well, are we an established, well-referenced website that have been around 5-10 years, or are we a brand new website and we're starting from scratch and we've got to go for the easier keywords? So that's a bit on difficulty. Once we've found the keywords that are feasible for us to rank for, we then move on to content. And content is all about writing really good, genuine content that adds value to your potential customers. And you write this content around the keywords that you've discovered in the earlier part of the process. So the example that we used in the last webinar was if you're a group of accountants and leads, a keyword could be accountants leads, really obvious, right? So you'd write a really nice piece of content around accountants leads. You'd have other secondary keywords that you'd also mention in that piece of content to beef up that overall search volume that you're trying to attract. So we write some really good content. In regards to content, it's a very difficult skill to have. I personally don't do it. I'm terrible at writing content. It's not my strength at all. So my team are specialists in this, and they write their content. You really need a good balance between general copywriting skills and writing for SEO, and understanding how to naturally get the keywords in there, and also how to sound very appealing and encourage and promote a call to action. A call to action is basically what we're telling the reader to do. So whether it to be fill out a contact form, whether it to be to call us, to engage with us via live chat or something like that. So this then brings us on to on-page SEO, so just so you understand the process. So once we've got our content that we really like, all we've got to do now is simply put the content on the website in an SEO-friendly manner, and that's simply on-page SEO. So we'll come on to the variables very, very shortly. And I suppose before we get into the detail, we go through all the little things that on-page SEO consists of. Do we have any questions at this point in time before we move on?
No, haven't got any questions so far, so you're good to go, Marco.
Perfect, thanks, Rory. Okay, great. So we'll get into the really interesting, interesting to some extent, of the technical areas of on-page. Now, don't be too phased by all these weird, terminologies and weird language. I'll explain it and make it very simple. So on-page SEO has several variables. I mean, there's loads of variables. It depends how OTT you essentially want to go in this area. But the Yoast plugin, which I'll come on to very shortly, and when I'll share my screen and take you through it, that will guide you really nicely. So in fact, you don't even need to really think with Yoast SEO. It actually tells you what you need to improve on, which is really, really good for people that maintain their own sites and don't necessarily have that SEO knowledge. So we're going to talk about a few variables. First of all, we'll talk about H1s, H2s, H3s. I'm sorry if you already know this, but I need to go over it for the majority of the group that obviously want help with their on-page SEO. So these are simply headings, different headings on the website. So heading 1, heading 2, heading 3. So when you break the code down like that, it's very, very simple. So your H1 would be your title for that page. So let's use the accounting example that we referenced last week. We're creating a page around accountants leads or accountants, or chartered accountants and leads, whatever the secondary keywords are. So our main title could simply be something like accountants in leads. And that's our H1, and that's what we tell Google is what our page is about. And now, as I mentioned before, Google indexes your page. It doesn't look at it like we do as humans. It just looks at the code. And if the H1, if the title of the page is saying, well, this page is about accountants and leads, then Google knows, oh, well, that's what the page is about. Moving on one step down, we've got H2s, which are effectively subtitles. So I'm just trying to think, maybe in that page, we're talking about 3 or 4 different areas of accounting. And each of these 3 or 4 different areas will be H2s, heading 2s. So you structure your page in that format where you've got your H1 right at the top. You may have several H2s, 3 or 4 H2s, you could even have more. Again, it's important to get that keyword or a secondary keyword in that H2. So maybe let's think you'll have a H2 that could be something like a subtitle like, why choosers as accountants and leads or something like that. So you're getting some of the keyword actually in that H2. Again, the same applies onto H3. So you were simply just dropping down a tier. So a H3, and I'll give you an example of that, it could be, we've got a subtitle on maybe what's different about why as accountant, why you should actually choose us. And we've got some bullet points, and these bullet points could be H3s. So I want you to think of headings in H1s, H2s, H3s as essentially a structure and how you structure your page. So it could be a main title here, a subtitle, and then within the subtitle row, so you've also got some paragraph text, but we could even have some bullet points that are H3s or something to that effect, or a list of some kind. And again, if we get the keyword or variants of the keyword within these H1s, within these H2s, within these H3s, it just tells Google very, very quickly what this page is actually about. Because, as I said before, Google will crawl the website and they need to see what it's about in order to rank you. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch to our website, and I'm just going to show you what I mean by each point and just illustrate it. So I'm just going to maybe go to our SEO page. Now you'll be able to see we've got a H1 here, which is our top level title of the page, and it tells Google what we actually do. Here could be a H2. So again, it's almost a subtitle, obviously related to the H1. So we're still talking about SEO company and leads. A H3 would be something like this. So within this section, we've got 6 areas here that we talk about, and these titles here could be H3s. So this is simply how we structure our site. And again, you'll see we've got, we can't attribute each heading the keyword. That's called keyword stuffing. And keyword stuffing is where we're just going OTT on getting that keyword on the page. And keyword stuffing is a very old school technique. It used to work 20 years ago, it definitely doesn't work now, and actually can penalise you now if you undergo those kind of activities. But again, Yoast will let you know the optimum number of times to have that keyword on your page, and it does all the maths for you. So it may say something like, well, in fact, you know what, you've mentioned the keyword three times more than you should do. You know, we advise that you remove 3 entries. Or conversely, it could say, right, well, you know, you need to mention the keyword 4 more times in order to hit that density. So again, Yoast does all the thinking for you. You don't need to really analyze anything. Yoast will do that for you. So that's what I mean by H1s, H2s, and H3s. Now we're talking about metadata. And metadata, there's a few variables within metadata that are really important. Now, I'm going to illustrate this point maybe by going to Google, and I'm going to type in maybe a random keyword, and I'm going to show you what the metadata actually is. So, I'm going to type in accountants leads. Now I'm going to skip the ads because we don't get a good understanding of the metadata in these ads. And I'm going to scroll down here to the organic results. Now, metadata really consists of 3 variables. So first of all, we have the title here. This is the title of the page. Now, as you can see, most of these actually have the keyword in some way, shape or form within the title. So I've typed in the keyword accountants leads. Well, here we've got the word accountants, we've got leads here. Again, here we've got accountants, leads, accountants, leads. They're not necessarily in the same phrase, but as you can see, they're somewhere within the title. So obviously our title is very, very important. So we need to make sure we have the keyword in the title. And I believe Yoast also tell you to put it at the start of the title. Now, the reason why they tell you to put it at the start of the title is because obviously here in England, we read left to right. So if we're doing a very, very quick scroll, and if we actually see the keyword accountants leads, the keyword we've typed in here, we'll say, oh, right, well, we found the match we're looking for. And, you know, we'll be far more inclined to click on that result rather than click on a random one that doesn't have the keyword that's easily seen, if that makes sense. So if you can get the keyword at the beginning of the title, that's great. There's another 2 things we need to talk about in terms of metadata. So title is one. The next is the description. The description is this area here. And again, this is really, really important. Within this description, we need to get the keyword in there, or we need to get some form of the keyword variant in there, or even secondary keywords in there. So again, we're allowed a little bit more space here. So it's essentially a long sentence. So obviously we want to word this description in a way that compels people to click on our website, right? Because they've got so many, we've got 4 choices now if we have a look at my screen directly. And, you know, we're going to click on the one that is the most compelling, or maybe the 2 or 3 that stand out the most. So we've only got really 1 sentence to appeal to people here. So it's got to be compelling and persuasive, but also get that keyword in, which again is quite a delicate balance. The last thing we have a look at is the link, which is above the title here. So you can see number 1, a big firm in Leeds, Armstrong Watson. So this is the URL, the link that we can preview before we actually click on the title. Obviously, when we click on the title, it will take us through to their website. But that link and the URL that it uses in the result itself is something that we have control over. And again, everything that we have control over, we need to make sure we make best use of that, because there are elements of SEO we do not have control over. Again, a perfect example here is this is where it matches really, really nicely. We've just typed in the keyword accountants leads. Well, in fact, if you look at the top 2 results, their link is the exact same of what we've typed in. So if you look at that, accountants-leads, accountants-leads. So that is a really good match. And obviously, Google are rewarding these pages on these websites because they match the search intent. Now, search intent is where if someone types in a keyword, they want they want to find out the answer to whatever they type in, or they want to be put in touch with accountants and leads, in other words. So it's really important that whatever your content is on your page that you're trying to optimize for, that it matches that search intent. So, if you're an example, let's take an example. If you're an accountant and leads, and obviously you want to write about that, but there'll be no point really writing about, I don't know, let me think, independent financial advice. If you're an accountant and you're looking for accountants leads keywords, okay, it's still in the finance industry, it's somewhat related, but independent financial advice is different to someone wanting an accountant. So you've got to be very, very direct and make sure you answer their search intent. If you've got a question mark around search intent and you think, well, you know what, I don't think this keyword I've chosen I don't think I can really answer this search intent. I don't think it's 100% applicable to my business. Then don't bother ranking for that keyword, or don't bother doing any meaningful activity. Just focus on the keywords that are exactly what your business does, because Google is smart enough to realize that if you're trying to rank for a keyword over here that isn't really what your business does, you're not going to be successful. So just focus on what the core of your business does, and then you can expand. So that's a bit about metadata. So just to recap, we've got the title, the description, and the URL, the link. Again, that everything we can control, we can change that, and we can optimize that depending on what keywords we choose. So let's get back to the presentation. And I've kind of jumped the gun a bit with URL structure. URL structure is just what we've spoken about. What I mean by that is the URL, the link that we choose to have. Obviously, that link should mirror the keyword we're trying to optimize that page for in an ideal world. The example we've just used is those pages that we found. They structured their page, they called their page accountants-leads. Obviously, they've got their main website before it. So abcaccountants.com/accountants-leads. Obviously, when you're constructing a URL, you can't put a space in there. It's not like Word. A space is the dash. Move on now to the fourth point, which is images and alt text. Obviously, try and include imagery where possible in any of your landing pages or pages on your websites. It really helps. It really helps people who are who shop more visually. For me, I don't like reading long articles. I much prefer to see a few images or watch a quick video to get the gist rather than read. So, okay, we've got images on our site. We need to make sure we mark them correctly. And there's two things we're talking about here. Firstly, what we actually call the image. So, rather than have a default image name that could be some random combination of letters and numbers that is just chucked out, let's try and call it something meaningful. So, I don't know, it could be, let's just use the same example. You're an accountancy firm in Leeds, and on one of your pages, you've got a picture of your premises, of your office. It looks really nice. We'll call it something like, accountancy firm in North Leeds, or something to that effect. So at least Google knows what your picture's about. But the really important thing here is alt text, and to tag and to mark your imagery correctly. Now, this is basically for two reasons. First of all, and a really good reason to do this is for people that are visually impaired. So obviously they can't see images. So Google actually serves them the alt text instead. And the alt text will be able to tell them what that image actually is. So it could be, an image of the premises of the office, or it could be, it could be an image of the team. It could be an image of anything. But obviously it's really important that you populate that alt text with a description of what that image is, especially for people who can't see imagery. So that's obviously really important. The second point is obviously from an SEO point of view. So as I said before, Google doesn't look at your website like we do as humans. It just looks at the code. And if the alt text code says that this is an image that's got something to do with an accountancy firm in Leeds, and that's really going to help your on-page SEO, and it's going to tell Google, and it's going to reinforce their confidence that, well, all our H1s, H2s, and H3s are talking about we're an accountancy firm in Leeds. Our metadata is talking about we're an accountancy firm in Leeds. our URL structure mentions that, we're an accountant in Leeds. But not only that, so do our images. Our images also say that we're some form of accounting firm in Leeds. So you can kind of see where I'm going here. We're getting a big tick in the box for all these variables, and it just reinforces the fact that you are what you say you are, and it's going to help you to rank for that keyword. And lastly, on this variable, we're going to talk about internal and external links. And these are different to backlinks, so let's not get confused here. So what I'm talking about here is the links that we have control over. So within our particular page on our website, we can link to other pages on our website. That's what an internal link is. So let's say, for example, we have our service page and we're linking to our contact page. That's a really simple internal link. An external link would be a link on our website, but we're linking to someone else's website. So that effectively is a backlink, but for that other website. So an example for that could be, I don't know, you're an accounting firm and you're linking back to a regulatory body, or you're linking to a page on the .gov website that maybe gives you a bit more information about some form of new regulation in accountancy. I don't know, I'm making things up. So that's the difference between an internal and an external link. And again, these are really important for your on-page SEO, and these are within your control. The reason why links are important is, well, internal links are important because it helps users navigate your website better. Obviously, the process flow on your website is really, really important. So if you haven't already spent time understanding the process flow and how a customer journeys through your homepage to whatever your final page is, it's really important to do that. For those of you that haven't, I'll actually tell you now, there's a really good free software called Hotjar, Hotjar, Hotjar. You can sign up to that, and if you've got WordPress, you can sync it all together very, very easily. And what it actually does is it allows you to take recordings of your consumer behavior on your website, and you can better understand the journey they take on your website. How are they transitioning on your website? Are they getting stuck at some point? Do you need to put a fix in to help them actually find what they're looking for, or is everything working really well, and how can we actually improve things better? So with behavior and that side of web, it's really important that there's always something you can improve on. What I normally do is once a month on a Friday, I'll schedule the whole day aside and I'll just simply watch all the recordings that people come on our website. I'll think, well, I'll challenge myself and I'll think, well, how can we do better here? It looks like someone's getting stuck here, or maybe someone hasn't found the answer as quick as they should find the answer. How can I make the whole user experience better? And that's what Hotjar allows you to do. The other thing that Hotjar allows you to do is you can actually ask questions and take polls. So for example, you can set a trigger, so a little pop-up in the corner, a little pop-up after X number of seconds, or after they've reached a certain percentage down your page, and you can say, right, well, have you found what you're looking for? And if not, what are you looking for and how can we improve? And it just asks for feedback. And I think as a company, to have that, I suppose, attitude, I think is a really good attitude to have, where you're always looking to improve and you're looking for feedback. And I think, if you do a little bit every single month, and after 6-12 months, you'll have a massive improvement, and hopefully you'll increase your conversion rate on your website from whatever it is to a better figure. And I suppose that's the key with this is conversion rate. So if your current conversion rate is 1%, and if we can increase that to 2% over 6 or 12 months, then that's double the amount of inquiries you're getting. So if you're not already measuring your conversion rates, then I suggest that you do that. But anyway, I'm going off topic. Internal and external links. So internal links are really important because of the process flow. External links just basically show Google that, we're not being greedy. We're linking to other resources on other websites where they add value for our readers. So, if there is a new legislation change and we want to refer our users to this change where they can find out more information directly, then if that adds value and we think they're going to come back and then engage with us, then great, let's do it. But I suppose the question is here, does it add value? That's the $1 million question. So we've got to make sure if we have external links, so in other words, we're taking someone away from our site, we need to make sure it adds value and it's best for us. Because the worst thing to do is obviously for them to go to an external website and then not return to yours. Obviously, it goes about saying that external links are to open in a new tab, so it doesn't close your existing, it doesn't override your existing tabs. People can still get back onto your website. I'm going to find some examples of internal and external links before we move on to some questions. Right. So I'm going to just take the first result that pops up here, and we're going to see if they've got any internal or external links. So you can see the call to actions here. They want you to call you. They want the phone call. So we've got call now button, obviously a call now title. We've got call here. So this is great. Obviously, someone that actually calls you is much more, I suppose, interested in your product or in your service than someone that maybe emails you or someone. A call. What I'm trying to say is a call will lead to a much higher conversion rate than an email. So where possible, always encourage the call. And if you have live chat on your website, that's absolutely great as well. Live chat accounts for people that they may be busy doing something right now and they're trying to multitask and engage with you in real time, but it also accounts for people that don't like calling over the phone. Some people don't like speaking over the phone. They'd rather just get an instant answer in their own time. So if you don't have live chat on your website, again, if I'm assuming you're in WordPress because you're here today, you can download a plugin called Talk2. That's T-A-W-K, Talk2. And again, they've got a free version that's really, really good. You can set that up in a matter of minutes, and you can have a live chat system on your website, and you can have people, you can respond to incoming inquiries. With Talk2 as well, they've got two different ways that you can answer that live chat. So the first is via your browser. So you log into the back end when you open your laptop, your computer, whatever, and you just leave it logged in, and it will start screaming at you when someone's ready to engage with you. It was, almost like someone's knocking at the door. The other option is if you're away from your laptop, you're away from your desktop, you can have the app, and the app's really good. It'll just, make a noise when someone's trying to chat to you, and you can get back to them in real time. So if you don't have live chat, definitely sign up to it. But anyway, let's get back to the topic. So internal and external links. Well, we can see here there's loads of internal links. There's internal links to their particular employees, which are great. So we've got lots and lots and lots of internal links there, which are great. I'm trying to find some external links now, which there's nothing in that page that I could see from an obvious point of view. There's no external links as such that I can see, but it still is a good idea to have external links in your page. Now you can see here, this is where they do internal linking really well, really well, I have to say. So they're essentially listing their services here, and these links go to their individual service page for these services, and that's exactly how you want to internally link your service pages. So they're doing this really well. So before we actually get into Yoast SEO, and I'll take you through an example page. Rory, I'm sure we've got a couple of questions on this area.
Yeah, that's right. We've got 4 questions. So I'll start with the top. Amy's asked, how do you manage the metadata if you offer a number of services or cover a larger area, more than one city?
That's a really good question. So you've got to make the decision, Amy, whether you want to optimize that page locally or you want to have a nationwide appeal. So if you're optimizing that page locally, then you'll have local keywords that have the city or the town afterwards. But if you're doing a national campaign or a national focus, then you're not really going to have much reference to any local or cities or any towns in the metadata itself. Maybe within the copy of the actual page, you'll have that referenced.
Perfect. We've got a question. We've got two questions from Noriko, and the first is: can I use the same text for description and alt text?
I think you're talking about two separate things, if I understand that right. So the alt text is what you label your image as. So it should be something very short and snappy, and you can write this in normal English. There's no need to put any hyphens or code or whatever. So an example of an alt text would be, let's take the website we've just been on, Armstrong Watson. They had pictures of their staff, didn't they? So one picture could, I'm taking, one picture of their staff could be something like, Joe Blogg's partner at Armstrong Watson. And that's what you'd use as your alt text for that image. Now for the description for the metadata, that's a complete separate thing. So the description for the metadata is essentially a sentence of what that page is about. And obviously you need to get that keyword in that metadata. And, as long as you're matching that search intent, then those things will be the same thing, basically. So it would be a short, snappy sentence about, we're accountants and leads and how it can help, and ideally some reason why they click on your link to go through to your website. So I hope that answers the question.
Perfect. And the follow-up question is: I was told page titles are too short and they should be between 20 to 70 characters. But I want to keep my page title simple and short. Is there any way to keep the page title short but still appear in the search?
Again, that's a good question, and we'll come on to the length of the title in the next part, and we'll see what Yoast actually say. They'll give you a range that it should be within. What I normally do is I just follow the instruction. The reason why I follow the instruction is because they know what's best. Of course, you could choose to keep it simple and short, but is that going to be the best for your SEO? Probably not. Just make sure it's in the green from a Yoast point of view, and that it's within their range, and then that's a tick in the box. I understand what you mean. You want to make it very short and very, very direct to the point, and you could choose to do that from a marketing point of view. And you could make the decision that, right, I'd rather have a short, concise page title from a marketing point of view, and just accept the fact that it's not optimized for SEO. But that would be your call.
Perfect. Next question is from Alison. It's: how do we measure conversion rate? What's the best software? Thank you.
That's a really good question. There's lots of different ways of doing this. Google Analytics is a really good way. So again, there's lots of different ways. So what I do first of all is, if you don't have Google Analytics, set it up. Again, it's very, very easy. If you've got a WordPress site, all you need to do is paste some code in the header. And in fact, for those of you that don't want to mess around in the theme files, you can download a plugin called Insert Header and Footer, and just paste the code in there, and you won't have to mess around with any files or go into any, you don't have to mess around with code, basically. So that's the step number one, set up Google Analytics. Then you want to set up goals within Google Analytics. And a goal is essentially a desired action that you want your user to carry out on your website. And that could be, for example, filling out a contact form. It could be calling a certain number from the website. It could even be something as basic as watching a video. It all depends what you define as that goal, what you want that user to carry out on your website. On a complete extreme point of view, if you've got an e-commerce site, obviously a goal would be a purchase, wouldn't it? You could even have goals as adding to a basket, and you've got lots and lots of different goals. And then once you've set up that, you'll be able to measure, what percentage of people that come to your website actually buy a product. And, you can work out, and you can actually see along the journey, right, well, people are dropping off. And you can understand why they're dropping off, and look to reduce that drop off. And once you've done everything you can to optimize that, then you'll find you've got a far larger conversion rate. You've got more inquiries or more sales coming through your website.
Just unmute myself. So you've just got a question here in KO. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. The question is: what is your approach for understanding the way a typical member of a target audience segment search for a product or service provider, and in turn, the terms you need your pages to rank for?
Right, I think another question you're asking. That's more so keyword research. So again, what I'd do is, if you haven't already, have a look at the session we did last week on keyword research. But essentially, with keyword research, we're looking at three main things. 3 or 4, we'll go over the fourth one as well. So first of all is search intent. So the keyword that you choose needs to match what you do as a business. So that search intent needs to have a big tick in the box. The second one is volume. So you've got to make sure there's enough volume there that it's worth conducting your effort and your time and your money into this process as well. So there's no point ranking for a keyword that has 10 searches a month. Likewise, there's probably very little point ranking for a keyword that has thousands of searches every month, because if you're not an established website or an established business, it's going to be way too hard. It's going to be too competitive, which brings me on to point number 3, which is competition and difficulty. Again, you've got to be honest with yourself. Ask yourself the question, where is my website now? Am I, a new startup that hasn't been, it's a new website, and of course, as it's a new website, it's not going to be seen in a credible or reference way as an established website is that's been around 10 years and they've done some prior, some SEO work in the past. You need to work out that, and to work out that, you need to have a look at your domain rating. And again, it's all mentioned in the session we did last week. So I'd probably give that just fast forward to the part in that session, because we've always got the recording. Fast forward to the part in that session where we talk about that, and that will give you a bit more understanding on how we shortlist keywords, and then from the shortlist, how we narrow them down to the keywords that we want to focus on.
Brilliant. And just a follow-up question with that, would you ever interview potential customers directly to ask them how they search for a product or service?
That's a really great idea. That's a really, really good idea. If I wasn't sure on the industry, or I hadn't worked in that industry before, then yes, I'd do that. But that is really, really good, because then you really understand what your customers are looking for. Now, what I do is, if I get an inquiry, whether that's someone over the phone, someone by email, I'll always just understand their search intent a bit more. So I'll ask them, can you remember what you typed into Google to get us? I mean, really, I know this information anyway, because if we look in our Google Search Console, you'll see what people are typing in to get us. But the reason why I ask that question is I really want to understand them better. I want to understand what they're typing in to get to us, and just the process they think about, because obviously that can change over time. Now, if you're in a well-established industry that's, it's what I'm trying to say, it doesn't really change too much over time. But if you're in a very fast-paced, maybe tech, finance industry, search intent can change. It can change year on year. If there are new legislations, if there are new products, new advances, then search intent and keywords themselves can change over time. If you have a look actually on Google Trends, it will tell you how keywords change over time and how things change. And one area where we're taking a risk with some of our clients is they're operating kind of 5 years ahead of where they are now. So they're actually optimizing on new products that they're in the market now, but there are very few suppliers. And because they're not maybe well adopted, they have a very low search volume at the moment. But hopefully in 2-3 years' time, once this is the norm and once that technology is picked up, then there'll be massive amounts of search volume for these keywords. So again, there's lots of different strategies, lots of different approaches you can take with regards to that. So I hope that helps answer the question.
Yeah, I think that's really good. And we also will be sending through the recording of this session and the previous one in a follow-up email, but also some useful links to the tools that Marco's mentioned today. So that's it for now, and now I'll let you carry on, Marco.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Rory. Okay, so now I'm going to talk you through Yoast, and we're going to go through a couple of examples together. And before I do that, I'm going to send you some useful resource as well in the chat box. I think I'll put it. So I've logged into the dashboard of our own website, and I'm going to go to I'll go to our SEO page, I think, and I'll show you what that looks like from a Yoast point of view. Now you can see we've got lots of pages. I think we've got around 100 pages. We've got pages optimized for all different types of keywords that around SEO and around web design. And again, that's a really good idea because so long as you're targeting different keywords on those pages, it just reinforces to Google that, you know, your content on your website is about one or two recurring themes or recurring services or products, and it gives them more confidence in their ability to rank you as well. So as this loads, I'm going to just send over a few things. So this is really, really good. This again is one of Yoast's, I suppose, I don't know what you call it, but softwares. This really helps in terms of content writing. So once you've actually found the keywords you want to rank for, you can write a draft in Word. Once you're happy with that draft, you can copy and paste that draft here into your content analysis. You simply pop the keyword in here and it will spit out all the results, and it will tell you, right, well, you need to increase your word count, or you need to increase the number of times you reference that keyword 2 or 3 times. It's really, really good. So I'm going to pop this in the chat area now for you to, if I can find it, for you to have a look at it in your own time. Okay. Another thing I want to put in the chat area is obviously just a generic link to Yoast as well. Now, for those of you who are familiar with WordPress, you can just type in Yoast in the plugin section and you'll find it straight away. It's however many X million downloads it has. It's a really well used plugin, and I mean, we've been using it for years. It's really, really good. So that's you can find a bit more information about it there. Oh, sorry. Let me send that again. Sorry, I think I haven't sent it to everyone. So that's the first link, and the second link should be here. So hopefully you can see those links now. Now I'm assuming you've already installed Yoast. It's very, very simple to install. Once you activate the plugin, you'll go for a quick what they call configuration wizard, which is just it asks you some really simple questions. You just fill in the boxes. It will just ask you, what your company name is, attach your logo. It'll ask you for all your social media links, and that's pretty much it. And so long as you've got a live website, you're good to go, because then it asks you a question. Is your website live and ready to be indexed, or is your website still in the development phase and not ready? So if you've got a live website, obviously click the box yes. If you don't have a live website, it's going to hide your website and make sure it's not crawled by Google robots. So that's something just to take into account. I guess from a point of crawlability, there are a number of ways how to, I suppose, hide your website. So if it's still in the development phase and you don't want Google to pick up on it, then you can install there's loads of ways of doing it. You can either put in your robots.txt file that you don't want Google to crawl it, but the easiest way to do it, if you want to avoid code, is to download a plugin called Coming Soon. And within the Coming Soon plugin, you can put in the maintenance mode. You click 2 buttons, maintenance mode, and then no one can see your website, and Google won't crawl it as well. So let's go back to an example. I'm just going to switch this around to a more friendly view just so you can see it a bit better. Now, this is obviously an example of our page. There are lots of different ways how to build pages in WordPress, and it all depends on obviously what theme you're using and what plugins you're using. This plugin, this page builder, is WP Bakery Page Builder. It's a really good one. I definitely recommend it. It's really good for SEO as well, because a lot of the page builders nowadays they're very easy to use, but because they're so easy to use, they're very slow and clunky and slow down your site. But I found that this one still allows you to keep allows you to keep your loading speed to a minimum. So I definitely recommend this plugin at WP bakery page builder. And again, depending on what theme you've actually purchased, this will come free with some themes. With other themes, you'll have to pay for it. Obviously, make sure if the theme you have doesn't come with this, make sure it is compatible with that theme. A quick one on themes. Again, I'm assuming you know a bit about WordPress. You kind of need a theme to design the site. I always go down the premium theme route, so never go for the free ones. They're just not supported, and it's just such a waste of time, because you may get 2 years down the line and all of a sudden it's not supported or it's broken and there's nothing you can do. So always pick a theme that's, you know, been around a while. It's been made by a really good development company, and if you are responsible for the website yourself and you don't have a developer, then at least you've got the support of that development company to help you if you've got any problems with the theme. So I'm not going to spend too much time in the builder itself. You can see how our website's set out. So there's headings, you know, paragraphs. We've got internal links, a couple of images, call to actions, contact form, etc. What I'm concerned about, well, not concerned, but what I want to portray to you is Yoast, right? So I'm going to scroll down and eventually I'll get to Yoast. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through every single variable with Yoast. And I'm going to show you what we do. So once you've installed Yoast, it will automatically pop up below your page builder, somewhere below it. So you can find it all here. You can see we're trying to optimize for the keyword local SEO company. Okay, so this isn't actually our main SEO page, this is just a smaller one. So let me actually find the main one we're ranking for. I'll get there eventually. The reason why I want to show you this one is because obviously we've put a lot of time and effort into this page, and I know it quite well. So when this loads, we're going to go through all the variables that we spoke about earlier on. I'm just conscious of time actually, it's 11:05 and we said we were going to go for a break at 11, didn't we? So I'll tell you what, let's go for a 5-minute break now, and then when we come back at 10 past, we'll be able to go through this. Is that okay, Rory?
Yeah, that sounds perfect. We'll be back in about 5 minutes. So at 10 past 11.
Perfect, see you all then.
Oh, that's the wrong screen share. There we go.
Hello everyone, welcome back. I'll just share my screen with you all. Okay, hopefully you can see my screen now. So I've got this page, our SEO page, loaded up, and we're going to go through Yoast. Now straight away, Yoast will give you a score to some effect. You know, it will give you a green, an amber, or a red, and straight away we can see that everything's in the green, which is good. And I suppose that's really the objective of on page, to make sure we get a green, or we do as much as we can to get a green. There'll be some things that maybe one or two things that we can't do, or it's showing that aren't complete, but in fact we actually know they are. And the reason why I say that is because Yoast may not be able to read some themes. Yoast may not be able to read some plugins. There'll be, Yoast isn't perfect. So if it's saying, make sure you only have one H1, heading one, so make sure you've only got one title. In other words, you don't have more than one, which is best practice, and that you've only got one, and you've made sure you've only got one. Sometimes it doesn't read that. So as long as you're verified yourself that that problem's actually okay, that issue's okay, even though Yoast is telling you otherwise, then that's fine. So there's two main areas. There's the SEO on page, and there's the readability. So first of all, we'll cover the SEO on page, which is, I guess, the reason why we're all here today. And then I'll also touch upon readability a bit later on. So as I said before, very, very simple. Pop in the keyword here that you're looking to rank for. Again, if you buy the premium version, you can put in multiple keywords, or we do it a bit differently, whereas we actually put a plan in place. So we have a sitemap, and we know what keywords we're trying to rank for on particular pages. So on this particular SEO page, we have about 50 different keywords that we're trying to rank for. And that's what drives so much traffic to this page. So again, here's where we can actually edit the metadata. So if you remember before, I was talking about metadata, the title, the description, and the link. So if you click edit here, we can edit all these variables, which are really, really good. So this is here where we edit our title, our URL, which is also called slug, and our meta description. So again, really, really easy, just a fill box exercise. And again, if you do this, I wouldn't say wrong, but if you don't have the keyword in there, or if you put too much text in there, Yoast is going to say something like, you forgot to mention the keyword in here, or you know what, you've only put 20 characters in the description, you need 80 characters, or whatever the range is, I've forgotten. Just to quickly illustrate that point, if you come down here, it will tell you what all your problems are, and it will tell you what everything is, it will tell you all the good things. So the red things are lovely things to improve on, and the green things are things that are tick in the box. So the trick is to just get as much green as possible within your control. And most of it, 99% of it, you should be able to do fine. Now these areas here where this is a really good example to use, where we've got 3 red areas where we need to improve on. These are actually green. It's just that Yoast can't read these particular variables. So the keyword is in the introduction. We do only have one title, and we do have the key phrase in subheadings, but for whatever reason, Yoast isn't picking up on that. So Yoast isn't perfect, but it's a very, very good tool. So we've gone over the metadata here. Now, obviously we've built our page, and as we're building our page, this will vary. We'll have more things transitioning into the green as we, come to the end of building our page. But you may actually find that once you've built the page and you've written your content, you put it all in the page builder or whatever you're using, you may still find that, you've got a few things that you need to fix. And the great thing about Yoast is it will tell you that, so you don't actually need to really think too much. Yoast will tell you what you need to fix. So for example, let's say you've forgotten to put some internal links on your page, then it won't be green, it'll be red or it'll be amber, and it'll say, well, consider using more internal links. Again, an example on keyword density. We're in the green here. It says the focus keyword was found 16 times. If you'd only mentioned it 6 times, it may flag and say, well, you've only mentioned it 6 times, but you've got 2,000 words, and they work out the percentage and they think that's too low. Conversely, you could mention it 26 times, which is obviously way too much, and they'll say, consider removing, some keywords. So the great thing about Yoast is, just to recap, is, you can be led by their result, but take it with a pinch of salt. So for example, this here is saying we've only got, it's saying the key phrase is not in the introduction. Well, you can actually do a sense check to make sure it is in the first paragraph. And obviously if it is, then great. There'll always be a few things that it can't pick up on. But let's talk about some more variables whilst we're here, just to reinforce the whole on-page element. So we've got outbound links in this page, which are great. So on this particular page, we're linking to other websites. And let's try and find an example of that. Here, we're talking about optimizing for mobile and for speed. Well, here on this link, we're actually linking to websitemagazine.com. And that tells us a bit more about mobile and speed. So we're actually, giving our users we're referencing them really good articles where they can go and find out a bit more about, mobile and speed and how it's so important for SEO. Now, obviously, this external link here will open in a new tab, and obviously this is, how do I word this? This link isn't going to a competitor of ours. Of course, that would be silly. This link goes to an informational website that tells them more information, and then once they've found out that information, they can come back to us and continue scrolling. So make sure that you're not sending people to your competitors or to other sites where they may not return back to yours, if that makes sense. Let's try and find another example of an external link. Here, again, we're linking to Forbes.com, massive website. So we do quite a lot of external links. Again, BBC, searchenginewatch.com, they're really good for SEO. So we're actually, we're putting our customers first. We're saying, well, obviously we can help you with our SEO, but, here's where you can find further, external information on the topic that will help you make your decision and will help you understand SEO a bit better. So that's outbound links. Internal links, again, we've touched upon this on the Armstrong-Watson website, so I'm going to skip over that. Keyword length, that basically means how many words are in the keyword itself. Well, for ours, SEO company leads, we've got 3 words in there. Just be conscious about how many words your keyword incorporates. And this can go one of two ways. So you've got one way where you've got a very generic keyword that's just one word, and that's most of the time that's way too vague, it's way too generic, and it's not going to yield any meaningful traffic. And also it's going to be very, very difficult to rank for that keyword just because it's so generic. An example for us would just be ranking for the keyword SEO. You know, that's A, it's impossible in terms of difficulty, but B, it's not really going to, I don't know how much value it will really give to us, because we want people that actually want to engage in an SEO service. Of course, we've got our blog and we're very informational and we give away value on SEO, but really we want the people coming to our website that are interested in an SEO service. So I'd rather be specific to the service or to the product than being very, very general. And also being very, very general doesn't get you anywhere. It's always really good to be targeted in any form of marketing, really. If you target a certain element, you definitely go, well, you're much more likely to see a return on investment than being vague and covering the whole market. Having said that, there's then the other side of the spectrum where your keywords are way too long. It could be 6 or 7 words, and because your keyword is really long, it's what's called long tail keywords that are longer. You may find that the search volume is so small that it's just not, again, it's not worth pursuing any meaningful SEO activity because you're just not going to get that return on investment. An example would be, let's take the accounting example. Optimizing your keyword for something like, something like, I am looking for an accountant in Leeds, so 8 words, and it's almost more of a sentence than a keyword. Now I can tell you just from experience, you'll probably get 0 to 1 person every month typing in that into Google. So no one will type that into Google. So therefore there's no point optimizing for that keyword. So this, again, it all comes back to the keyword research part of SEO. You've got to make sure your keyword research have decent search volume. So there's, it's not too low, it's not too high. Well, obviously it can be high, but just make sure your website you've done some prior SEO work before, or it's been around a long time and it's well referenced, and therefore you can realistically target high competitive keywords. So the length is really interesting in terms of keyword. But what you also have with length is you find that you'll have a question that's a keyword. So something like, I don't know, how long does it take to sell a house? So that's, how long does it take to sell a house? So 9 words. So that's a lot of words, right? But I'll be able to tell you a lot of people will actually type that into Google because it's a well-known question. And obviously estate agents will rank for that keyword, even though it's a sentence really. They'll rank for that keyword because obviously they can answer the question, well, on average it takes X number of months. And obviously at the end of that question, they can then say, right, well, if you want us to give you a free valuation, then call on Amber or fill out this form. And that's all about content marketing and ranking for informational keywords, which is a really, really good strategy for those of you that like marketing in that way, whereas you're answering the question, but then you're kind of spinning it around and saying, right, well, if you want to find out a bit more, or if you're interested in that service, then, contact us. And what you'll find is those more informational stroke question keywords, they're much easier to rank for because the person looking for that, then they're not so much in the buying phase. So they're not really looking, but they're not ready to sell their house right now, but they're just thinking about it. So because they're just thinking about it, a lot of companies think, right, well, I don't want to waste any time in targeting people that are just thinking about things. I want people that are in the buying phase right now and they're ready to buy in the next week, which is fair enough, I understand that. But ranking for people that are very early on in their purchasing journey can pay off in the long term if you have a really good content marketing strategy. And from an SEO point of view, it's much, much easier to deliver a page 1 ranking for an informational or questional term than a purchase intent keyword. Another little tip, if you are going down this strategy, another little tip is you want to accelerate that journey from the research phase all the way to the buying phase as soon as possible, right? You want to accelerate that journey rather than taking 6 months to decide they want to sell a house. You want them to maybe take that journey in 1 month. And there's lots of different ways you can do that. One way is by retargeting to them. So they're on your website, they've found out it takes 4 months on average to sell a house. I'm making up a figure. And what you can do is you can retarget to them. So whether that be on social media, you can then obviously put some code on your specific page and then retarget them on social media. You can then retarget them with Google Ads or using the Google Ads network. There's so many different ways you can do that and to accelerate that journey. And maybe they've signed up to a newsletter of yours and you can put them into a funnel and then process them along that funnel. So that's really, it's not so much SEO, but the SEO is how we generate that lead or how we generate that interest in the first instance. So I hope that little tip was useful. We come on now to key phrase density. Again, we've mentioned this, so I'm not going to talk about that again. Key phrase in the meta description. Again, we've spoken about this, making sure the key phrase is in there. Very, very simple. Meta description length. We had a question about the length of the title, but again, relevant to both variables. So again, Yoast will tell you if you need to expand the length or decrease the length of text you've got in that field. Previously used key phrase. Again, that's a really important point. So previously used key phrase, you don't want to really have two separate pages on your website targeting the same keyword. That's keyword cannibalization, where Google doesn't really know what to serve, and it's just confusing Google, and it's confusing your own website as well. So you want to make sure you've got a very, very, very clear sitemap where you map your site and you attribute and allocate keywords to designated pages, just so you make sure there's no overlap. Of course, you can internally link to related subjects. So you could have a parent subject up here that's, for example, let me think, about selling your house. And then you can have subtopics here, child pages that are all about maybe, how long does it take to sell your house? How much does it take to sell your house? And maybe top tips to sell your house. And obviously you can very nicely internally link from the parent page to the child page and vice versa. And that's seen in a really positive internal linking, that's internal linking seen in a very positive manner. And that will really help rank your site quicker. So obviously make sure you're not duplicating keywords. Image alt attributes, again, we've spoken about this just by labeling the image what it actually is for two reasons. A, so the visually impaired can understand what that image is, and B, so Google indexes that image and they know what that image is, and they can, if you've got the keyword in there, great. Text length, again, this is a really interesting topic, text length. And there's no, in general, the more text, the better. But you've got to take everyone into consideration, and it does vary from industry to industry. Me personally, I don't like reading text. I'm more visual, so I like images. I really love videos. So everyone shops in a different, browses in a different manner. But from a crawlability and an indexability point of view, obviously, think as text as almost not necessarily code, but obviously Google can read your text, can't it? So the more text we've got, there's two things we can do there that are really interesting. So the more text we've got, A, we can get more keywords in that text. If we've got a really long 2,000 word piece, we can get 50 keywords in. But if we've only got a 300 word article, can we only get about 5 or 6 keywords in, something like that. So the more text we have, the more keywords we can get in. More keywords we can get in, the more search volume we should hope to have coming to our page. So if you can do that for your keyword, that's great, but there'll be some keywords where, it wouldn't be suitable to write 2,000 words. And, people want to get to the answer quick. So again, it all depends on industry to industry. A good way to assess, if you're thinking now, well, I really don't know what my length should be for what I'm trying to rank for. Well, the easiest way to do it is to A, find the keyword that you want to rank for, pop that into Google, bring up the first 3 organic results and have a look at how many words they have. Just, do a quick word count. And, if the top three results, the organic results, have a word count between 500 and 1,000, then if you if you take the top end of that, if I produce 1,000 words, that not only does it talk about what they're talking about, but it goes one step further, right? So it adds even more value than the current content. Then that's a massive tick in the box, because that's what we're aiming to do. You know, Google ranks the best content in terms of search intent. So if we can actually do better than our competitors, then Google should hopefully rank us because we're delivering more value to Google's clients. So that's a bit on text length to think about. Key phrase in title, of course, it goes about saying we need the keyword in the title, in the H1. And as I said before, they like it here ideally to be at the beginning of the title as well, if you can do. SEO title width, that just means the length of the title. So again, make sure the length is suitable. It will tell you if you're too short, it will tell you if you're too long. We had a really good question earlier about, you know, I want to keep it short and snappy and concise, maybe from a marketing point of view, which is great, but, you know, will that have an impact on your SEO? It will to some extent, but what you've got to think about is there's so many different variables. I mean, these are just, well, there's 15 variables here, but really there are lots more that come into play with on-page SEO. And, you know, if you were to miss one, you know, would it have a big impact overall? You know, it's hard to say. If it's the title, it could do, because the title is a massive thing. Title is very, very important. And that will affect your click-through rate, how good your title is. And I'll come on to that, in fact, when I finish this. So yeah, it's a tough call to make, that one, isn't it? Whether you want to go short and snappy or actually just optimize for SEO and give away that conciseness, maybe. I suppose you can still be concise in the title, you know, and that's why the length is capped. I don't know I've forgotten how many characters the title length is capped to, but it is capped to a small sentence. Lastly here, we've got key phrase in the slug. This basically just means, have you got the keyword in the URL? Just to demonstrate this point, I'm going to come back to here. So the link for this particular page is obviously Green Gecko Digital, our website address, .co.uk / the keyword, essentially. That's the keyword we're ranking for. So have you got the keyword in the slug? Yes, we have. Tick in the box. And a really good example of that was when we had a look at accountants leads, and we saw that the top 2 results had the exact same keyword as their slug. So that was really, really reassuring to see. So what I'm going to do now is talk to you a bit about click-through rate before we go on to readability. And let's use the accountant example, shall we? So I'm skipping the ads, I'm skipping the local, I'm just going to go to the organic results here. So click-through rate is really, really important for SEO, and Google monitors click-through rate and readjusts where you are in Google in accordance with your click-through rate. So your click-through rate is basically, the formula is the people that have typed in the keyword, the number of people that have typed in the keyword and then clicked on your link. So let's assume you're Armstrong Watson. If 100 people type in accountants leads, and of those 100 people, I don't know, 30 have clicked on this particular link, then your click-through rate for this keyword on this page is 30%. Now, 30% is generally a very good click-through rate, but obviously Google will move your ranking up and down depending on your click-through rate. Now, really, the only the 3 variables that affect your click-through rate is the 3 that we can see right now: the metadata, which is title, description, and the link. So, this is the first step of the process, really, providing you've got a title that's optimized for SEO and compelling, you've got a description that's optimized for SEO and compelling, and you've got a link that's optimized for SEO and again, compelling. Providing you've got all that, that's the first step. And, the user should click onto your link, providing that the search intent is matched. That's step number 1. So what we also do is, on a periodic basis, we review all our metadata to see how we can improve it. Because if we can improve our metadata, we can improve our click-through rate. If we improve our click-through rate, we get more people coming to our website. If we get more people coming to our website, we get more inquiries. So there's a massive knock-on effect. So every 6 months, we look at our metadata and we think, how can we improve it? How can we go one step further? And obviously, with time, things change. So the the trick is to make sure your content is what's called evergreen. So you're not relying on a specific date or a specific year. No matter what year it is, it's still relevant, and it's still applicable to your audience. Of course, it may not be possible for some pages. For example, if you've got a page about a specific law, that law could come out of date in 3 years' time. But then once that law is updated in 3 years' time, that's a really good, justification for you to go back onto that page, update it, and then you'll see the ranking should hopefully go back up because you're being relevant now to what's around you. So that's one on click-through rate, and again, that's a massive factor that is taken into account with rewarding your website at the top of Google. And again, you can check this there's loads of ways you can check this. If you go to your Google Search Console, if you don't have Google Search Console, I'd set it up immediately, because that's where we really track our organic search. It's one way of tracking it. And you'll be able to see the exact keywords people are typing in to get to you, how many times they've clicked on you, your click-through rates, etc. So you can see some really, really, really good data there. And again, it's all free of charge. So let's go back to readability, shall we? Which is an on-page element. So if you remember, we spoke about readability and actually writing content. This is very much one step prior to where we are now. So readability is all about whoever is responsible for writing the content. And as I said before, it's a very, very difficult job. If I was to do this myself, I'd fail miserably. I'd have reds and ambers absolutely everywhere. It's just not my skill set. So you need to, approach someone that is very, very good and can understand these variables and can write in a way that's A, compelling, which is difficult. B, ticks all these boxes in terms of passive voice, consecutive sentences, etc., transition words, but also they can optimize your content for the keywords that you're trying to rank that page for. It's a very, very, very difficult job. So there's two skill sets there you need to think about. There's copywriting, but it's not just copywriting, it's copywriting for SEO. It's very difficult. Obviously, we've got a team here that do this and specialize in this area. So once you've actually drafted your content for this page, what you can do then is you can pop it in. Before you even start building the page, I wouldn't build the page unless you're 100% confident with the content of the page, with the content itself and the text. So don't bother building the page until then. Otherwise, you're going to go back and you're going to have to change it again. When your copywriter, whoever is responsible for writing this SEO copy, is finished and done, paste their work into that link that I sent before. If I can. I'll bring that link up 1 second. The real-time content analysis. So it's really, really simple. Just paste the work in here, pop in the keyword, paste the word, paste all the copy, pop in the keyword there, and automatically this is all blank, it's all default, so it's going to be read anyway, but it'll come up with, either yes, everything's great, all okay, or, there's a few things that we can improve, depending on who you've hired. Just to illustrate the point here, you can see here that we're primarily in the green, but there's this area here where ideally, we need to get in the green, but, we're more or less there. I'm happy with this, and it's very, very difficult to actually get this in the green. But as you can see, we're on page 1 for, I think it's 50 or 40 something keywords on page 1 for this particular page. So, this is more than enough to actually rank this page well. So you want to make sure everything is in the, not everything, ideally everything, but it's very, very difficult in this area to make sure everything's in the green. Whereas on the technical side, it's quite simple really to make sure everything is in the green. Whereas here it's always a bit more difficult. I'll briefly go through just a couple of these. Some of them I don't really get, to be honest. Again, that's why I've got a team that handle this. You've got the Flesch reading ease score here, which basically tells you how difficult your content is to read. And for those of you that aren't familiar with how to word content from an online point of view, generally you've got to write content that even a high school you know, I think it's actually primary school now, but primary school child can understand, because online lingo needs to be very short, snappy, concise, and very basic. Obviously, it varies from industry to industry. If you're a solicitor, you may want to obviously have some of your legal jargon in there, but of course you want the content to sound very natural, because most of your clients won't actually be familiar with legal jargon, will they? Only you and your colleagues and competitors will be. So always put yourself in your customer's shoes and think, what voice do they want to hear? Obviously, paragraph length, that's simple. Sentence length, that's simple as well. But you just need to make sure that you structure your content in the right way. Transitions words. It's asking us here to use more transitions words. Obviously, we use quite a lot already, and I think to use a bit more here would just be a bit slightly OTT. So obviously, we're making the conscious decision that we don't really want to put this in the grid, just because it will then just sound a bit too weird. And again, that's, you know, it's your call if you want to make that decision or not. So that's pretty much Yoast SEO from an on-page point of view, and you can see how really simple and easy it is to use, and definitely recommend using it. So before we move on to the next section, Rory, I'm sure we've got a couple of questions on this area. Shall we go through them?
Yeah, for sure. We've got about 7 in the chat. So we'll start off with the top. Sally's asking, up until now, I've used all-in-one SEO rather than Yoast. Is there much difference in terms of functionality between the two? And do you think it's worth switching to Yoast?
That's a good question. Yeah, we've come across clients in the past that have used all-in-one SEO. I mean, again, it is a popular plugin. We've always transitioned. So when we've taken on board that client, we've transitioned over to Yoast. I just feel it's more effective. But saying that, you know, I do know people that use all-in-one and say it's great. I think as long as you stick to a plugin and commit to it and understand it inside and out, then I think it'll be great. So yeah, it's a difficult question to ask. If you're happy with it, stick with it. If you're looking to change, then try Yoast.
Perfect. Okay. And our next question is from Amy. It's asking, in the keyword, I noticed you haven't used a capital for leads. Does that matter?
So no, it doesn't matter. And I'll just show you why. I think I know what you mean. Let me get it. I think it'll be here. So yeah, what I'm looking for, the only reason we put in, so on the front end of the website, there is a capital and everything's, you know, set out how it should be. But this algorithm here, it can't tell what's a capital and it can't not. So it just looks as a word. So that's why we don't need to attribute capital letters in this box here.
Perfect. Next question here is from Noriko. I asked a question about description alt text earlier. It was a sort of a missed question. What was meant to be asked was, can the description for an image and the alt text for the same image be the same?
Can the description for an image and the alt text for an image be the same? That's a good question. I guess so. I don't see why not. I think by description, do you mean caption? I'm guessing you mean caption. But yeah, I suppose that I wouldn't worry too much about that on a detail. With the images, it's just two things really. A, what the image is called, what's its file name, and B, what you're marking the alt tag as. Everything else is kind of optional, so you can even leave it blank if you didn't want to populate that.
Perfect. And we also have next question from Sally. It's I've noticed you have Instagram feed on your dashboard menu. Does your Instagram channel appear on your website, and does it have an SEO value, or is it just there for user experience?
Yeah, more for I wouldn't even say user experience. It will have some form of SEO benefit, but a very little SEO benefit. We use it as a way to I suppose, I guess, show our credibility, because a lot of our social posts are all about what we get up to. And by having the feed on our homepage, it tells people very, very quickly on a very brief snapshot what we actually do and what we're up to. And I guess it just gives users a bit more, I suppose, confidence in us. And for those that like to use social, a good way to interact with us as well. Perfect.
Next question we've got Enrico. I can never get green for my Yoast SEO score. Is there a website that helps generate focused key phrases or SEO titles?
I think you're talking about two separate things there. So first of all, you need to find out, you need to commit to a keyword that you want to target for and pop that in your Yoast box. The second part of that question is you can never get green. Well, there's two reasons why that may be. First of all, everything could actually be okay, but Yoast can't actually read your site. So maybe there's some incompatibility with another plugin, a conflict, or maybe because your theme, it can't read it right. So in fact, you could actually have the right things. Obviously, on the other hand, you could have things wrong. So as long as you focus, as long as you do what Yoast tells you to do, and under each section, it'll actually have a link to find out a bit more detail as well about that individual variable. As long as you follow that, you should be okay. If you're still struggling, you're probably best getting someone else to do the on-page aspects of your SEO, and then you taking care of the other elements.
Perfect. Next question is from Misha, and it is, what was that Google search thing we should set up to see what keywords people are searching?
Yeah, what I'll do now is I'll pop it in the chat box. So it's Google Search Console. I'll just pop the link into the chat box, so you've got that. But it's very easy to set up. All you need to do is add a TXT record to your DNS. So whoever's responsible for managing a domain name, forward it to them. And from that day you set it up, you'll be able to see all what people type in to get to your website, and you'll be able to look at the volumes, click-through rate, and some really good data. Perfect.
And following on from the previous question, Alison's asked, for Google Console, is it best to use domain option or URL prefix? The first one says it requires DNS verification.
Yeah, so use a domain level. They'll all require DNS verification. So what you need to do is, as I said before, you need to add a TXT record to your DNS settings. It sounds complex. It's very, very simple to do. So if you're responsible for your domain name, it'll tell you how to do it, or you can do a quick search. It takes 2 seconds. If someone manages your domain name, just forward that code onto them and they'll do it for you.
Perfect. And I believe that's all the questions for now, so I'll let you carry on.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Rory. Okay, so I'm conscious we've only got 10 or so minutes left. And I just want to touch on a few last points. So these things are kind of, I've labelled as web design best practice, and they are, but they're also very, very applicable to on-page SEO. So first of all, loading speed. So obviously you want your loading speed to be as low as possible. You want your page to load within ideally 2 seconds. Now, the reason why we want to do that is as follows. So let's take a step back. We've gone to Google. I'll do it together, actually. I'll do it on my screen. So we've typed in accountants and leads, and we've come across to the organic results. Now, we've got a couple to choose from here. You choose the one that obviously appeals to you the most for whatever reason that is. Now, obviously, once you click on that link, this link will take you to their website or your website. Now, if this process takes 6, 7, 8 seconds, you'll think, oh gosh, I've lost patience now, and you'll go back, won't you? So you'll go back to these search results and you'll find the next one. So it's really important that your website loads really fast, just so people don't exit that process, because it happened to all of us, I'm sure, whether that be on mobile, especially on mobile. If you click on the link, you get really impatient and you think, oh gosh, I'll try someone else, hopefully their site will load a bit quicker. So that's really, really important. But obviously Google will not rank you if your website is very, very slow. It just simply won't bother, because it knows that it's going to serve a really poor experience to Google's customers. So if your website takes 20 seconds to load, Google won't even probably index you, because it just knows they're going to be upset and they're going to go back to Google and find something else. So you need to make sure your website loads really, really fast. And that goes without saying, really. It's not just for SEO, but just for general user experience. Your website needs to load fast. So if your website is taking any more than 2 seconds to load, then I'd look to improve on that. Now, what I'll do is I'll pop a link to a really good software. Again, it's free, where you can test the speed of your website. You can test the speed of your website here. And obviously, if it takes more than 2 seconds, look to address it. If it's less than 2 seconds, then it's not a priority. You can leave it. So that's speed. Next point is responsiveness. And again, it's 2020. What I mean by responsiveness is, is it mobile friendly? Does the website look great on mobile, laptop, tablet, desktop, whatever that may be, right? And websites nowadays, there's no option. It needs to look great. It needs to respond to the varying screen size, right? So again, web design best practice, obviously important to your on page, because if you're designing a page, then you need to make sure it looks great across all platforms, across all devices. It can't just be optimized through a laptop. It's not good enough. So when you're building the page, just have that in mind. If you don't have if you're not necessarily a web developer and you don't have that skill, that's something to be conscious of. Test that page across all different devices, just to make sure it looks great. And lastly, I've spoken about call to actions so far in today's webinar. A call to action, essentially, we're telling what we want that user to do. Do we want them to call us, fill out a contact form? Do we want them to purchase a product? What is that call to action? If you don't tell your user what to do, then you can't expect that desired action to be carried out. So it sounds, really almost too simple, but we've got to tell people what to do. Call this number to speak to us today, or fill out this form, or whatever it is. Make sure you've got 2 or 3 really good call to actions across your page. And just by having call to actions, if you don't already have call to actions, just by having call to actions, you will definitely see an increase in your conversion rate. And again, I've just labeled it under best practice because it's best practice when designing landing pages or something to that effect. I'm just going to go on to another topic, just so you understand again the process of SEO. And then I'll open to some questions. So once we've actually completed the on-page part of SEO, so we've got all the content on the page in an optimized manner, and we're really happy with it. Let's just say the majority, 95% is green in Yoast or something like that. We're happy with it, and that's really good. We can move on to the next step in the process. So the next step in the process is to get more backlinks pointing towards that page and to other areas on your website. And as I said before, a backlink is a link from another website to your website. And the easiest way I explain this, it's like if you go to university and you write a dissertation, within your dissertation, you need to reference, all the authors that you've spoken about, just to give your dissertation credibility and to give it more weighting. It's the exact same with a website. Google likes websites that are referenced by other websites and linked to by other websites. And with backlinks, there's a number of variables to be taken into account. Well, first of all, the exact same as keyword research, is the backlink relevant? Well, if we're an accountant in Leeds and we've got a backlink from a financial institution in Leeds, then that's quite relevant. It's pretty much in the same industry and the same location, so that's a tick in the box. But if it's a link from, I don't know, a manufacturing company in the US that has absolutely nothing to do with us as accountants in Leeds, then that's not relevant at all. So they've got to make sure the backlinks are relevant. Again, we've got different types of links that are do follow or follow, and links that are no follow. And on a very basic level, do follow links will pass on a really good weighting and a really good lift. It's called link juice. They'll pass on that link juice to your website. It'll help boost up your website to be seen as a more authoritative website with a higher domain rating. No follow links won't have that effect, but obviously they're still important to have a very natural combination between follow and no follow links. Anchor text is really simple. It's just the text we use to make that link happen. So on someone else's website, that link text could be a brand name, ABC Accountants. It could be your website, www.abcaccountants.co.uk. Or more importantly, it could be the keyword. It could be the keyword that could be something like accountants leads. Again, we need a very natural combination between your brand, your URL, and your keyword as that text we use to link from someone else's website to your website. And then lastly, the URL. So, what this link, well, what page are we actually linking to? You know, are we linking to a service page? Are we linking to a home page? What page are we linking to? We just need to make a conscious decision about that and make sure it ties in with the anchor text. So obviously, if we're linking to a page that's optimized for accountants leads, then, you know, the anchor text would be a good idea for the anchor text to be accountants leads, just so everything marries up and looks very nice. So I'm conscious, you know, I've spoken a bit about best practice and how that relates to on-page SEO. I've spoken a bit about backlinks, just so you can see the overall picture now. I hope you found some use from today's presentation, and you understand what on-page SEO is and what it consists of, and actually, you know, most importantly, I like to deliver value. So I like to think that now you have the tools you need to know what to do to further improve your on-page SEO. Essentially, download Yoast, and that will tell you what you need to improve your current on-page. But if you're creating new pages, then obviously write that content, paste it in that checker, adjust the content until you're ready, put it on the page, then run through Yoast, and you'll probably have a couple of things that you need to iron out. So I'd just like to open, you know, up to any questions now. I will just paste a link as well. I'd be really grateful if you have got some form of value from today's session. I'd really like it if you were to leave us a review on Google. That would be much appreciated. And I'll just pop that link in the chat box. But yeah, Rory, I'd like to open for any questions we have before we close today.
Yeah, sure, no problem. We've got one question here from Misha. I'm just going to stop the recording now, though, and we'll take the final Q&A.
Yeah.